We've been asked questions about the evidence. What evidence do you need for certain competencies? And a few people have asked us about the RGP evidence. It's really important that you have a look at the modified assessment framework. In there is all the evidence that's required for the new type of assessment. So for example, 522, the aftercare of RGPs, you no longer need a direct observation of an RGP aftercare, and that will be assessed with case scenario and images. But that information is all in the modified assessment framework. In addition, your assessor will be in contact with you to give the specific evidence that you need for any competencies that are outstanding from previous assessments. So have a look at the modified assessment framework and the action plan from your assessor. We've had some questions about competency 415, which is the dispensing a range of lens forms, and previously you needed 3 different PRs for that, a high RX, a varifocal, and on a child, a paediatric. You need 3 reflective accounts for these so that you can review each of those, and that needs to be a reflective account on a patient that you have dispensed, so you can review back to previous records or consider previous experiences that you've had. We've had some questions about stage 2, some questions asking about the direct observation and what will that be like. The direct observation will take place in person. You will have an assessor and a patient and yourself, and because all 3 of you are in the room, we need to do a lot of careful preparation about how to do that safely. It will be, we're looking at a number of different location options for that and considering how to conduct those assessments safely. The content will be very similar but not exactly the same as previous years. So if you prepare at the moment for what it was, that will be similar. And of course you and the patient and the assessor will all need to be wearing PPE. We've also had questions about when that will be, and the answer is it will be as soon as we can launch that in a safe way for everyone concerned, the patient, for you and for the assessor. We've had a question about what type of evidence you can use in stage 1 and can you use your patient record. Apart from 415, where it might be possible to use a patient record, you can't use patient records directly. However, they will be very useful if you have them. You can prepare a case scenario to discuss with your assessor. Another person has asked, who provides the case scenarios? Is it the trainee or the assessor? Well, if you've got a good one, if you've got one to discuss, then tell your assessor. The assessor may well start by asking you, have you seen a patient like this before? So if you have, be ready to talk about it, and that will be really good evidence for your assessment. We've had a question about what the time frame is between different stage 1 visits. The answer to that is it really depends on your progress. Talk to your assessor about how many competencies you have left and how long you think you need to prepare. Even like before, it is still the case that you're best to try and prepare around about 30 to 35 competencies for each visit so that you can meaningfully get ready for each visit. If you've got more than that, you'll probably need another one, and agree with your assessor when that will be. We've been asked a question about ophthalmoscopy in stage 2. The question was, will I have to do direct and indirect ophthalmoscopy? Normally you would have a choice of which ophthalmoscopy you want to do in the eye examination in stage 2. However, in the current circumstances, we are suggesting and requiring that you do indirect ophthalmoscopy. Direct ophthalmoscopy is being assessed in stage 1, and if you haven't already achieved that competency, you can the evidence that you can give is a witness testimony, and you can do that on a simulated patient, so it can be someone in your bubble, for example. We've had a question which is, can my assessor make me do more than the 4 reflective accounts that are already required? I assume that you're in stage 1. There are some reflective accounts, as you know, that are required in the modified assessment framework. Other action plans that are outstanding from previous visits when we were able to attend your workplace might need to be modified, and your assessor will have looked at those and come up with other ways of assessing them if that's needed. That might be a reflective account, or it may well be other ways of assessing. We've had a question about the evidence that's needed if you're on furlough. So if you're doing stage 1 and you're on furlough, and the question was, if we are furloughed, are we expected to go into practice to find the record cards to write the reflective account? Well, your reflective account needs to be based on a real patient, on real evidence that you have seen a patient. If I were writing a reflective account, I would find it really helpful to use a patient record to do so. However, I don't know what your particular circumstances are, and I can't say exactly how that will work for you. I would suggest you try contacting your employer and see if you can arrange a convenient time for the practice to go in. They will need to take into account the patients and social distancing and arrange that with you. It wouldn't be appropriate just to turn up, of course. So try and make an arrangement with your employer so that you can gain access to the records to write your reflective account.
Hi, we've had a number of questions about the OSCE. So September OSCE, the deadline for applications for that is still the 31st of July, so the end of this week. I think it's fair to say that given that stage 2 assessments aren't currently going ahead, we don't expect any additional candidates from those that are already eligible to make it in time for the September OSCE, and that's why we haven't extended that deadline. And if you are eligible for the September OSCE, so you qualified for it before assessments were suspended, or you are resitting from January or March, we will be in touch with you in the next few weeks with specific details about how that OSCE will be different. Basically, it will have social distancing measures and there will be fewer candidates on circuit. However, you will still need to complete the same number of stations and the same things will be tested simply in a socially distanced way. None of the criteria of what you will need to do will be changed. So the advice that is on our website about preparing for that OSCE is the same. So we've had some questions about a possible October OSCE. There are no definite plans for an October OSCE. There are some dates that we have on hold from some exam centres, but we're not planning to run an OSCE in October until we've done the modelling that would allow us to know who's got through stage 2, when are they going to be ready for an OSCE between September and January. So once we've done that, once we know the dates for stage 2 and once we're able to release those to you, we'll then have more details on any future OSCEs. We are keeping the possibility of October open, but also November, December, depending on availability at exam centres and depending on the number of candidates that will be ready to sit after stage 2. So we've had some questions about what the scheme will be like for trainees in 2021. Now, we haven't released full details on that. As you know, we've delayed the enrolment until the 1st of September to allow us to focus on those trainees who are currently on the scheme. We're aware that a lot of placement will be relying on the current trainees to finish before new trainees can start. We have been working with the GOC, though, on some really key changes for that cohort, particularly around patient episode requirements and supervision. And the GOC are currently consulting on those changes to their handbook. So to allow much more flexible supervision, still under the primary supervision of a qualified GOC optometrist, and also to some changes in the patient episode requirements to move away from refractions, contact lenses and dispensers to encompass wider patient interactions and patient encounters. There is details of that on our website on that consultation, and you can respond to the GOC's consultation on their website.